This is the last road into Lysychansk. Putin's forces have moved with rare focus here and may soon encircle the pocket of two cities on a river we're driving into. The Ukrainian forces we saw here, mobile, tense, at times edgy. And this is why, across the river here, the besieged city of Severodonetsk, increasingly more in Russian hands, whoever you ask. We can hear the crackle of gunfire down towards the river below. Well, we were told the Russians have tried already to get into town, and it looks like we might be witnessing another attempt over there. That smoke near one of the remaining bridges into the city. Our police escorts shout drone, often used to direct artillery attacks. We are on high ground, exposed and scattered. It is a tale of two desperations here. That which makes people stay, and that which makes them finally flee. Leonid is the latter. Some who stay are increasingly angry at what's left of the Ukrainian state here. A young woman was killed here a day earlier by a shell. And locals told us not to film, saying cameras attracted shelling. Russia's bloody persistence and unbridled firepower is bringing the kind of victory in the ruins they seem to cherish. This cinema was a bomb shelter, local officials said. It's unclear if, when their huge airstrike hit, the Russian military was aware it had been emptied days earlier. Just startling how whole chunks of this cinema have been thrown into the crater there. There's just the ferocity of the airstrikes we're seeing here, designed simply to get people out of this town. Those who stay among the shards of glass feel abandoned already.
Many people, but there is no gas or water or power or anything. We asked the aid workers today when it will all come back, and they said there are only prostitutes, junkies, and alcoholics left. That means the aid workers have left here.
Lydia is carefully picking up the pieces of the airstrike, which she felt the full force of in her apartment 8 floors up. There's an old lady on the first floor and me with my disabled son, she says. He doesn't really understand the war's happening. Retreat lingers in the empty air. If Putin takes here, he may claim he's achieved some of his reduced goals in this invasion. It's now the unenviable choice of Ukraine's leaders. If this is the hill its men and women will die on. The possibility of a limited victory there for the Kremlin edged closer today when Ukrainian officials admitted Russian troops had got further towards the city centre of Severodonetsk, and clearly that pressure will extend into Lysychansk, where today a French 32-year-old journalist, Frédéric Leclerc-Imhoff, was killed as he filmed in an evacuation truck heading into Lysychansk, killed by Russian shelling. Jim?
Terrible news about that journalist. And Nick, while we have you, let me ask you this. The U.S. is considering sending Ukraine a rocket system, but President Biden today told reporters he will not send anything that can fire into Russia. Just how badly does Ukraine need these weapons? What do you make of that?
Look, they certainly need something to match the ferocity of the older Grad-type MLRS rocket systems that Russia uses on an hourly basis, frankly, across that eastern front there. The HIMARS system, which they're requesting Ukraine from the United States, is a technological leap ahead of that, frankly, and has a range of hundreds of miles, potentially. Joe Biden's comments, well, if you pass them carefully, he's not saying he's not going to give them the rockets. He's just going to not give them in such a way that they might be able to fire into Russia. Does that mean Ukraine might get them under strict conditions not to fire them into Russia? Clearly, the White House worried about the escalatory message there could be if indeed those rockets were used to strike deeper inside Russia. But you've got to remember, on all of this, Jim, the US has not been holding back in arming Ukraine. They've sent massive amounts of stuff and will continue to do so in an increasing fashion in the months ahead. And that's changing the war in Ukraine's favour. But here in all of this, a Biden administration very cautious about giving Moscow, frankly, the excuse to change the narrative here from being one about them invading their lesser militarily equipped neighbour to one about the United States somehow being more involved in this war. Jim?
Right, and that is the Kremlin line that we hear over and over again in state media, that this is Russia against the world in all of this. And let me ask you this. Today, the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, commented on rumors about Vladimir Putin's health, which is remarkable in and of itself. What can you tell us?
Look, it's important to be absolutely clear. There is at this stage no evidence that Vladimir Putin has any health problems, apart from that you might normally expect from a man in his 60s who spent much of the pandemic in isolation. And so the comments from Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, are essentially responding to rampant speculation in the Western media, often anonymously sourced, often poorly sourced, that he may have cancer, he may have other debilitating diseases. Sergei Lavrov said, look, none of that is the case. This is a man who daily goes about his work in full public view, I'm paraphrasing here, and he has no ailments or sicknesses. But the fact that we have a pretty senior Russian official having to comment on this kind of speculation is probably a reflection, frankly, of how loud it's got. Maybe it's a reflection of concerns inside of Moscow, but you know, you and I, Jim, reading the Kremlin is almost impossible. That's the whole point. There've been Kremlinologists who've been failing to do that for decades, but still certainly this question will continue to reverberate, but at the end of the day, it doesn't appear to have loosened Putin's grip on power, despite whatever you might read from these videos about how visually, physically, he may have changed over the past 10 years. Jim?